America was founded by immigrants, and to this day, each year, thousands of immigrants come to America in search of a better life. One of the biggest growing minorities in the U.S. is the Hispanic population, which makes up 17.1% in the U.S. This accounts to 55 million Hispanics overall in our country. In the past 45 years, the Hispanic population growth has increased by 6 times from 9 million people to 55 million people. Although the majority of Hispanic peoples entering the U.S. are Mexican, ranging at 63%, other nationalities include peoples of Puerto Rican, Salvadorian, Cuban, and Dominican descent. According to the American Immigration Council, the Latino share of Arkansas's population grew from 0.8% in 1990 to 3.2% in 2000 to 6.9% in 2013. As more Hispanic people integrate into the American lifestyle and generations pass, more people tend to lose aspects of their culture unknowingly. While the Spanish language is still very prevalent to the Hispanic people, certain customs can be lost with living in an American culture.
Spanish is the most popular non-English language in the U.S. and is one of the fastest growing languages spoken around the world. Despite the presence of the Spanish language in the United States, researchers predict that the number of Hispanics speaking Spanish will drop from 3/4 to about 2/3 by the year 2020. More Latinos are letting go of their cultural practices in favor of American trends and the dominance of the English language in media and at school. Much of the Latin American culture among Hispanic immigrants influences the U.S. in many ways. The Spanish language is prevalent to us even in Northwest Arkansas, where we have many Spanish speakers and radio stations that broadcast solely in Spanish. We decided to interview Laura Franco, a student at NWAC whose family made Spanish a priority while growing up.
My first language was obviously Spanish. That's what my parents knew how to speak well the most. And so I was raised up to like age 3 or 4. I was raised in only Spanish. And it wasn't until I started preschool when I started learning how to speak English. I picked up on it very, very quickly. My parents tell me this. I don't recall this, but my parents said that one day I came home and I was like, I don't want to speak Spanish anymore. Like, I only want to speak English. And my parents were like, no, that's not right. Like, you have to stick with your culture. You can't just abandon it. And so my parents were very strict and were very persistent with us learning Spanish, and they basically forced it upon us. Like, they wouldn't allow us to speak English at home, and if we did, we would get like a little timeout and stuff. And so eventually it stuck, like after being scolded so much.
If you are 6 hours a day, 8 hours a day in English, and you go home and you're at home from 4 to, you're half and half, and your homework is in English, all the reading you're supposed to do is English. English is what it will become your dominant language unless your parents say, no, here at home we speak Spanish. And unless parents say, let's read in Spanish, let's do that. And there's been a misconception in Northwest Arkansas that we seem to be getting over, not in all school districts, but in most school districts in Northwest Arkansas, that they used to tell the parents, no, speak English to your children. Let your children speak English. And what it caused was a big rift between parent and child. We would interpret between parent and child at our schools because the parent didn't know enough English to express themselves well, thoroughly. And then the child didn't have enough Spanish because whatever you use the most is what you're going to be dominant in.
With new Hispanics living in the U.S., comes new generations that won't grow up in their family of origins culture, meaning that they may not be able to fully participate in the religious and cultural traditions of their country by being a citizen of the U.S. According to pewhispanic.org, religion is more important in the lives of immigrant Hispanics than in the lives of native-born Hispanics. Nearly 7 in 10 immigrant Hispanics say religion is very important in their lives, compared with only half of the U.S.-born Hispanics. In Northwest Arkansas, there are a number of different Latino food markets from Mexican food to Salvadorian, as well as a fair share of restaurants such as Abuelos, Acambaro, and Las Vejitas. One could say every American loves some chips and salsa, as well as enchiladas, tacos, and guacamole. Over the years, Latin American cuisine has definitely seeped its way into American culture. Hispanic and Latin Americans have had a big influence on music in the U.S. Numerous Hispanic musicians are household names including Jennifer Lopez, Enrique Iglesias, and Pitbull. While at times they translate their music to English for American audiences, some radio stations keep the original Spanish, preferring to embrace the authentic song rather than the altered one.
For example, like on the holidays, like they don't do posada, for an example. Posada is a really traditional Mexican thing for during Christmas, where we all gather around and we go sing to every house. But it's a really fun thing, and I've noticed that most families just don't do it anymore. I mean, my family, we do it. We always do it every year, and it's really fun because you get to enjoy it. It feels like you're in Mexico. So like saying in the future when I have kids, I will definitely show my kids the culture where I came from, technically where our families came from. So it's really nice for me to be showing them that.
People that give up their language and a lot of their culture are economically more successful. For example, like they might make in the 6 figures or the whatever nosebleed money, but they're not happy. Those that can maintain both languages, be educated in both languages, be educated and culturally adept in both languages, might not have the nosebleed money but are very successful and tend to be happier.
It is important for people to be culturally aware of what is going on in their country and how it affects them. People need to learn about culturally relevant issues in order for them to make the correct decisions when it comes to teaching their children and newer generations about cultures overall.
The misunderstandings or misconceptions between the cultures, are hopefully at least trying some way to help them understand a little bit more about why some of those concepts and cultural traditions and customs and things are the way they are, because then, or why maybe in the Hispanic community they do those things so that those kids will understand too, and they'll have a better, oh, okay, now I understand why maybe they're doing this or they do that or what they're talking about, so that they're not just totally just criticizing them for something that they don't understand, because a lot of times it's understanding that makes them have a better understanding of each other by learning those things, because I feel like that's something that I can kind of help incorporate into like what they're learning. Besides just the language, you can't just learn a language and not learn the culture. So
since the U.S. is formed by immigrants all over the world, topics such as immigration, traditions, and language barriers make a big impact in the U.S. People need to embrace all of these beautiful values and traditions in order to understand each other better. People will find many similarities instead of differences if they give themselves a chance to learn and become informed of events and traditions outside and inside of their borders.